Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're going to be talking about the spell Cordon of Arrows. Sam, what is this spell? This seems ridiculous to me. I don't know who would cast this or for what purpose.
Sure. So when you say ridiculous, you're just like, I don't understand why this is useful kind of deal? Is that where we're at?
I don't know. It just seems stupid and silly. And like, what are you doing? You're planting arrows in the ground. It's supposed to be like landmines or something, or
I'm now envisioning the players come upon their ranger, and their ranger is like taking their arrows with like a little spade and like digging up a hole and sticking them in there. And like, what the fuck? That's not a tree. What are you doing? He's like, it's fine. It's a trap. Because you're putting an arrow in the ground. How is that? Yes, definitely that's silly. For sure. Love that. Okay, so Cordon of Arrows is bad. Very small caveat, very small but can be fine if you have a lot of extra level 2 spells rolling around, which as a ranger you don't. But hypothetically, as you get towards the higher levels and you're still fighting things that care about like 4d6-ish of damage, and you can get them to come into an area that you've prepped, and they fail dex saves, this spell can be fine. That's a lot of caveats to say this spell is quite bad. This is a spell that you have to set up, but you can set up multiple times, and kind of gives you free damage in combat, but you have to really know where they're going to be moving towards, and you have to not care what creatures are damaged by said area, which makes it on the whole quite awful.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could see this useful for is like if you're trying to hunt deer or something.
I mean, that's literally like what the spell's kind of supposed to do.
Well.
I mean, as far as like fantasy goes, if you're gonna hunt deer in D&D, I guess you can just make a survival check and make the little cinematic scene of the ranger goes out for 3 hours in the woods and hides up in a tree, and there's a single clean shot goes clean to the deer's neck, and it's perfect kill, and they take it back and
shoot it.
Yeah,
I mean, but then you have to tempt the deer into the area somehow. With what are they?
Yep.
Like, not corn nuts, deer corn, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
you put a pile of that there. You can hide somewhere and shoot it.
Yeah, the other thing is like this is. Because in the instance where you would want to be trapping something, you have to get it to walk within 30 feet of a 5-foot area, right? Because you plant them all in the same spot. You plant the 4 pieces of ammunition all together. That you're not be able to like spread them across an area. You're not able to have like a bunch of different defenses that'll pop up in different spots. They're all one spot, and when things walk within range, to go pew 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 pew.
But only one at a time, though.
Yeah, one at a time per creature, which makes it, I think, a lot worse. But middlingly useful if you got a bunch of extra spell slots lying around. So like, let's talk about best case scenario here. I think that's an easy place to try and look at the spell to gauge, can I ever fit this on a character sheet? Best case scenario is creatures are going to be walking within 30 feet of a point. You just only take an action to set up. So like, let's say you're running from them and the encounter just hasn't started yet, and they're going to have to come through this door. You can Cordon of Arrows. You can Cordon of Arrows however many times you got second level spell slots, and you can upcast to get third level spell slots to get extra damage. Then hypothetically, as long as a lot of things come through that door, you can get a lot of arrows to pop up and make a bunch of damage checks. So for every instance of Cordon of Arrows you cast, you're kind of getting free 46 damage out of it-ish. Most times it's going to be less than 46 damage because a lot of things are going to pass the dex saves, or things are going to pass the dex saves enough that some of the ammunition is not going to connect. Because it is all or nothing. It's either a d6 or 0. It will never do half, which is not normally what spells do, but I guess it makes sense because they're arrows. Right. It doesn't add your dex modifier in any meaningful way, but if you're in a circumstance where you're able to be like, all right, I got 5 actions to prep, Cordon of Arrows, Cordon of Arrows, Cordon of Arrows, Cordon of Arrows, Cordon of Arrows. Something will open that door, take 5d6 damage. Something next thing comes in, takes 5d6 more damage. Next thing comes in, takes 5d6 more damage. And that can be somewhat powerful. That's all of your resources on this. This is every single one of your spell slots on doing that kind of effect. And we're in a very specific circumstances where things are coming through a space and you have the time to throw down like 5-ish actions worth of stuff. Then Cordon of Arrows is like, by putting all of them together, you're making something that isn't as good as one version of a spell slot better than this, right? Like you're making you're like combining them to be an effect that is middlingly useful. It kind of facilitates the trapper fantasy in that way. And if you're the kind of person that you never want to use your spell slots for anything else and are kind of into the idea of setting the big trap that is an explosion of arrows that just Cordon of Arrows can do that for you. That is kind of the only use case where I think it is remotely good. If you're ever casting one instance of this, 46 damage for a second level spell slot, not it. That ain't it. You can do better than that. That is not what you want out of this. It's not even 46.
That's not even 46.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even 46 at all if they pass any of their dex checks.
Yeah. And like first level Burning Hands is going to on average do way more damage than this. It just is. It's going to hit functionally the same area, right? Things coming into a space. You're going to be able to cone that pretty consistently. If the thing is only within the cordon for 2 turns before it dies and there's only one thing coming into it, you've wasted 2 of the arrows. They just don't do anything. They just stick in the ground forever long. If the encounter goes only 1 or 2 rounds, they're not going to get the full cordon out of this if things aren't running into it. Even if you get the full cordon out of it, it's not very good. This is the kind of spell that really only can be abused for it to have any impact whatsoever, and abusing it has such an enormous cost. It's really hard for me to say, like, yeah, you should try it out. But there will be some rangers out there that really don't give a shit about their spellcasting. There are going to be some rangers out there that say, I have forsaken the spell list. Give me the most cheesy thing I can do. And they will cast Cordon of Arrows with all of their 4th, 3rd, and 2nd level spell slots. Something will come through the door, take 86 damage. The next thing comes through the door, takes 86 damage, and you'll feel like a superhero.
They're going to, yeah, and then their target dies, and they're going to forget about the 2 arrows that are still down there, and some kid's going to walk across there.
And get murdered. Sure. Yeah. This is a bad trapper's fantasy that can be used in, I think, a moderately interesting way. The problem is it just, like, how you have to care so little about everything else you're doing. You have to want no other synergy from other things. Now, granted, the other ranger spells are quite bad, so that's not necessarily something you're like entirely against. It just, to me, it's a one and done kind of one encounter per long rest fantasy thing where you have exactly enough time to set up, and you never want to cast this in combat. You never want to cast this if you don't have the 4 rounds to get it prepped. You never want to cast this if you don't know if you're just going to enter into the area.
How embarrassing would that be? You're getting attacked and you start digging holes and putting arrows in them.
And they're like, what are you doing? You're like, I'm dealing maybe 46 damage. A longbow shot with my dex mod's probably better than this. Like, ugh. It being a free action is powerful. I can't deny that. It's free damage, but like, God, is it bad? You don't want to have to do this. You take spells from outside the player's handbook and you'll have a better time. Like, there's got to be something better printed by now that makes you want to use your second level spells on something meaningful. You have Pass Without Trace. Pass Without Trace is way better than this. Different, but way better.
Yeah. Sam score?
I think this barely squeaks out a 2 out of 5. I wrote about it like it's a 1 out of 5. It is very bad. And if you aren't abusing it, it's definitely a 1 out of 5. But if you are abusing it, it's something.
I'm giving it a 1 because it's stupid.
That's a good reason.
All right. All right. Well, that was Cordon of Arrows. Thank you, Sam, for all that. And thank you, everyone else, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.